Hi, Anita and Ryan here, and on this short video I want to discuss the value of mind mapping for personal transformation and indeed for business growth. So what's it all about, and why should we engage in mind mapping at all? Well, let's just take a look at what a brain cell looks like, and if you look at this picture here, you'll notice that there's a rather hexagonal looking nucleus here, which is the brain cell, and then you've got all these branches forming off it that connect to other brain cells, and those branches are the nerve pathways that communicate the thought processes from each brain cell to another, and you've got billions of these in the brain that form a huge network. So when you're actually mind mapping like I've done here, what you're doing is mimicking the way that the brain thinks, that the way the brain maps out its thought processes. And when you think about it now, the way we were taught to express our thoughts on paper in very traditional form is by writing from left to right across the page in text fashion. But now you know the brain doesn't actually think that way. But there's a more important reason to mind map beyond just mimicking the way that the brain thinks, and that is that when you do so, you are teaching the right and left brain to communicate with each other. You're developing that skill. Well, let's face it, we were given a whole brain, and most people are dominant in either the left or the right side of their brain, and in particular the left side. And it's the left side of the brain that gets emphasized mostly in business and personal growth. Just to remind you, the left side is concerned with the analytical, logical, rational thought processes that we carry out on a day-to-day basis, and the right side is concerned with the more creative, imaginative side. So it involves things like visualization, cultivating intuition, and the musical functions of the brain that are to do with the rhythm and the pace with which we carry out day-to-day activities. Now, Ron G. Holland is somebody who's written a book called The Eureka Enigma, and if you haven't already read that book, I do recommend that you read it, because he really addresses this imbalance and, more importantly, how to restore it by developing the right brain. So mind mapping is one tool to really develop that skill, and therefore it's really essential. Let's face it, if you're only using a part of your brain, you're leaving a whole load of growth in terms of personal and professional on the table, and therefore a whole load of success in terms of time and money on the table. So I really do encourage you to utilize that. Down here I've just given you some example functions for mind mapping that you can use. You can use it for just about anything here. And then on the left side here I've just given some examples of the way I use mind mapping. For example, I use it to map out the content of my book that I've written. When I was employed, I used to use it for appraisals, and I also use it for networking and masterminding different projects I'm working on. It's a whole host of functions and applications you can use it for, and it's particularly useful when it comes to web conferencing. There's still people, going to meetings and traveling miles to go to meetings when they can actually web conference using mind mapping and do the same thing but save themselves a whole load of time, money and stress in the process. So, if you want to start developing the skill, where would you start? Well, I recommend you start on paper, because when you draw out a mind map, a centerpiece here with branches coming off, what you're doing is rewiring the brain and learning to realign with the brain. It's a very physical way of developing that skill. But beyond that, I would recommend using software. This is MindJet software that I'm using, and software allows you to do far more, because you can attach links and files to your map and keep everything in one place, which is great for streamlining the process instead of actually going in and looking for files all over the place. You can keep everything on the one map and click in the link to access those maps, whether they're online, whether you've got files online or links that you want to access online. But a great place to start. There's some free online goal mapping software that you can use to start with, and it is free, and its author Brian Main is very expert. He's a world-renowned authority in teaching people mind mapping as applied to goals and self and beyond that, and you can access that at goalmappingonline.com. And if you really want to get good at it, he also runs some workshops here in the UK and abroad, and there's the link to access that. So I really encourage you to have fun with the process of mind mapping and really develop it, because it's only as you give yourself the experience of developing this skill that you will begin to see and experience and reap the benefits that it can bring to you in terms of your personal growth and your business growth. So I hope you've enjoyed this video, and I look forward to seeing you on the next video. Bye for now.